I'm honoured to be here, part of this fantastic group. I hadn't realised how much this all meant. I've been paddling my own canoe for 12 years and felt quite separate from most conventional thinking. But here, it just completely blows me away. I've really been working in my passion for the last 12 years, and life has just been phenomenal. And I think I've been guided by something much bigger than me. And what I want to do is share some of the things that I've learned with you if I may. I was a selfish, money-motivated workaholic until I was bankrupt in 1993. Quickly followed by a messy divorce, separated from a young child, and had a nervous breakdown. I worked with psychiatrists and counsellors to see my life in a different perspective. Instead of blaming the world for everything that went wrong, I realised I was responsible for my own happiness. The crash was the best thing that happened to me. I learned about the importance of love, family, relationships. I acknowledged that I hadn't been the best dad to my two older children. Whilst I had provided for them, I was never really there for them and never spent any quality time with them. Looking back now, I can see my life wasn't in balance. Like many people today, I was on a roller coaster, rushing from one problem to another, not ever stopping to look deeply inside myself. And I think that was fear. These awarenesses started me on a path of personal growth. I moved in with a mate who was very spiritual. Sometimes we'd be up all night just chatting. He introduced me to a book called Celestine Prophecies. And that helped me to see my life and myself in a new light. I grew increasingly appreciative of the fact that we are all energy and we are all connected. I also learned about the value of life coaching to create personal empowerment and improving self-esteem. In 2002, I was relaxing in my favourite cafe in Maidstone, enjoying my cup of coffee, watching this little bundle of pure joy, love and energy on the next table, with Mum instinctively knowing exactly what that little person needed. This beautiful picture was smashed by her angry teenager, shouting, swearing and arguing, and she was giving it back with equal ferocity. And I thought, what on earth went wrong? Before children go to school, the majority are fun, creative, imaginative, and laughing all the time. And then they're pressured by multiple forces. School, puberty, exams, relationships. To sacrifice their uniqueness to conform to the expectations of others. In that moment in the cafe, the big question for me became, how can we better equip that beautiful bundle of pure energy to cope in this ever-changing, challenging world? And how can parents better communicate with frustrated teenagers to diffuse volatile exchanges? We expect parents and schools to prepare children for life. But the fact is, parents are doing the best they can with what they know. They can't do any different. And schools are often hamstrung by the academic curriculum. Children get the message they're not good enough, they're not capable enough, they're not smart enough, they're not anything enough. During my years in business, I'd learnt about a concept called USP, unique selling point. I saw a parallel with human beings. Every person has something unique, something that distinguishes them from everybody else. Something positive, something wonderful. And an awareness of this is the basis of self-esteem. In contemplating how to better prepare children for life and success, it's critical that someone affirm this fact. So I created a program that combined the USP concept with self-esteem. I discussed my idea with the head teacher of my children's school of the two oldest children. He agreed to give me the freedom to work with a group of 8-year-old underachievers. As I refine the components of the programme, if right now you're all thinking, that's scary, you're right, I was frightened. What was I doing as a professional businessman in a classroom? I was surprised how easily everything just came together. It was as if I was providing the missing piece of the puzzle. The administration welcomed me. The children were wholly engaged. All of this confirmed I was on the right path. Statistics proves me correct. My programme resulted in a minimum of 15% improvement in test scores over and above the year group as a whole. This process resulted in my first life coaching programme, and it was for children, called Go for Goals. In 2003, whilst I was coaching some teenagers, it became apparent that any child that was suffering had a parent that was also suffering. So I turned my attention to the parents. I took a parent coach training course in the US, then came back and became a parenting tutor for 6 years in the local adult education centre. And during that time, I created a personal development programme for parents called the Parent Champion. This programme has now been independently evaluated over 2 years by Canterbury Christchurch University, with parents from dysfunctional families in deprived areas with the following outcomes. 67% identified a significant increase in self-worth and confidence. 36% progressed into education, employment or training. 21% came from social services, and they stepped down their intervention from child protection orders with massive savings and social impact. Everyone reported significant changes by trusting their instincts, gut feeling or intuition. A year after the training, 80% of these parents had sustained the change in their life and integrate it into what they were doing in their relationships with their children and families. I recently began teaching the same programme in schools for teachers, students and parents, working together to change the culture of the learning environment. We call this exciting programme the ethos of empowerment. The core of these programmes involves teaching how to change your emotional state by looking at your life circumstances in a different light. How to be the architect of your thoughts rather than the victim. Parents notice that their children are far more sensitive than themselves. Some parents have noticed their children know what they're thinking. Children labelled ASD, ADHD, dyslexic are significantly more sensitive. For example, one mother of a 7-year-old diagnosed with ADHD had been sending loving energy to her son whilst he's at school. Her son's teacher pulled her to one side when she went to collect him and said what a fantastic day he had. She explained that at one point, when his usual group of friends became disruptive, he took himself away from them and played with another group of children. Mum proudly explained that he even makes eye contact with new people he meets. Another mum had a 4-year-old son who was diagnosed with global development delay. He couldn't communicate or interact with anyone. After the course, and simply by increasing her awareness of her son's emotional state, she reported she can now communicate with him non-verbally. This not only transformed their communication, but has huge impact on the whole family unit. When you feel good about yourself, everything feels easier. Your children are happier and more content. And when you're angry or stressed, the opposite is true. When your emotions are up in the air or you're focusing on your problems, you're very unlikely to have a positive connection. Most parents know when they're happy, their children are happy. But what very few know is that their children, being sensitive to a parent's emotional state, also take responsibility for their emotional state. Children don't have the confidence, communication or emotional skills to express their concern. So they kick off in the only way they know how to get attention. That might be screaming, hitting out, or storming out of the room shouting, "You don't understand me," as they slam the door. The cost of this crisis in the UK, there's 120,000 families that cost the taxpayer over £9 billion a year. Because the government are trying to fix the problem using the same old techniques that aren't working. The cost is actually increasing because all we're doing is creating a growing problem of dependency. The most crushing cost is not the crisis. It's the loss of human potential and the impact on our society. Our young people in prisons could be the next Gandhi, Einstein, or Bill Gates. Who will ever know? If you take nothing else from what I've said, please remember we need to teach parents nothing else but how their energy affects their relationships. And when they combine new ways of thinking about themselves and their children, they literally transform their families and their communities. By prioritising a child's emotional state, they gain the freedom to be who they really are. Thank you.